This is cool. We're having a fireside chat.
Test.
Yeah, sounds all right.
It works.
How rarely do we get some good feedback here? It is bright. It is brighter than you thought it was.
I always know, that's the thing. As soon as you walk in, it's just gonna be blinding to the eyes.
So
hello everybody.
How's it going? Quick round of introductions. My name is Patrick Dees. I'm joined by Sumit Gupta here, who's the founder and CEO of Beahm TV.
Yes.
And this guy at the other side of the room needs no introduction. Guy Beahm, who's AKA Dr. DisRespect's joined us. How you guys doing?
Good.
Great, man.
Good. This is
Good to be here.
Yeah, we're having a fireside chat. So first and foremost, just by way of hands or applause, how many people are here to see Dr. DisRespect? Like, whoa, come on.
Me too.
That's what I'm talking about. And so we're going to talk a lot about kind of the industry, what it's like to be a streamer, all those types of things. But one of my goals here today was not to just have you like hear us chat. We're going to open this up toward the end of our time for an audience Q&A. But like as we're going right now, I would love for you to just throw your hand up. I think Maurice is right here in the front row, this good-looking gentleman right here. He's got a microphone, and he'll literally come to any of you guys if you have a question as we're talking a little bit as we're going through this. So, Sumit, I would love for you to kind of talk to me really quickly about like what is Beahm TV? Like what are you doing here? Why are you guys participating in the event, and kind of go from there?
Yeah, so I'm the founder CEO of Beahm TV. We started about 2 years back. Our whole mission was to turbocharge any kind of interactions, engagement, monetization between the influencers and essentially their communities. And we have a bunch of technology solutions, really good ones out there that really help streamer community do that. We have a network of about 20,000 streamers active, and we are rolling out a bunch of products in the next quarter that's going to take it to the next level. And in general, I think I've been blessed by the industry in general, and I've been helped along my way. And my whole mission was now to kind of help as many kind of influencers out there as possible. I see this industry as essentially a new way of essentially a new way of entertainment, and that's just growing like crazy. And as the worlds are converging between gaming and entertainment, I think that's where we are headed. And essentially kudos to Tyler at EsportsArena. They're doing a great job at it. We just look at the facility; it's just amazing.
Yeah, it's impressive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's so. Like, well, how did you guys get together, guy? Like, how did you find Beahm, or how did they find you, or how do we stop the feedback? I might need some help with the mic in a moment. Somebody out there. But so, how did you guys find each other, guy? Like, how did you heard of Beahm TV? Did he find you? Did you find him? Like, what was the?
Sure, a coworker from when I was working at Activision. After Activision and I sort of departed ways.
Yep.
I was in the process of looking for a job in the industry, game design specifically, and a few months, lots of design tests, and then I essentially was in the process of potentially taking a job up in Washington, and a coworker from Activision, he's like, hey, come down here, come down up to Peninsula, and meet with the guy.
This weird dude.
Yeah. For lunch, and I got a buddy that I'd like you to meet. He's got some good ideas, and I said, okay. So I met Sumit over some lunch.
I was trying to hire him for Beahm. Right?
Yeah.
My whole mission was,
sure.
hey, I'm trying to do something here. It's a very interesting industry because there are just so many kind of niches, so many views into it. There's not like one thing you can do, right? You can only have a lot of initiatives, and everything has to come together in a way, right? And
So you were trying to hire him.
So
but
I was just trying to hire him, like, hey, just join us. He has an experience, as a level designer, community manager, being a player, 2-time champion, Yeah,
I definitely want to hear your whole story. But like, what excited you about Beahm? Like when he's trying to hire you aggressively, like what was exciting about what they're doing? That
Sure, it was definitely like sort of an outside of the box, futuristic way of thinking in terms of like how do we spectate professional gaming, at that particular moment. And he brought up the idea of like he had this startup company or this concept where, this is at the time where virtual reality viewing content in a virtual reality environment was sort of like this new upcoming in thing. And, Sumit had this idea, this concept of basically being able to tap into a game while it's being played live and be able to sort of navigate inside that virtual space.
Yeah.
So you're basically taking any angle that you want as a spectator, as a fan of whoever. Like let's say if Ninjas in Pajamas are playing CS:GO on Dust, you're able to fly around in virtual reality and view a specific bomb site or angle or bridge or whatever, and in real time.
Yeah.
And so I hadn't heard anything about that. Like I've watched a lot of esports. I've watched the set angles. I've seen production. And they do. These events, they do a great job. But I never thought of like, whoa, this is kind of, this is
Next
more
level,
This
yeah.
is next level,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
And so then that concept kind of carried over to like, well, not only can you do this for like professional esport gaming events, but let's say one of your favorite streamers is streaming Battlegrounds or Fortnite live on their channel. Hey, instead of me sitting here and watching on my flat screen and I have a virtual headset, I could put on my virtual headset, go into that specific game that they're playing live stream and fly around and just watch them. And so I was sort of sold.
You're just immediately, or is it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I would say no. So he was sold, but then there was a deep desire in him to go and say, you know what, I want to do live streaming.
Okay.
So do you mind if I just do that while you guys figure it out?
Well, that was part of our sort of our arrangement with him bringing me on as sort of like
An advisor.
an advisor
Yeah.
was to go out and learn the industry.
For sure.
Because I had never live streamed or
Yeah.
anything. I had this character that I did a long time ago on YouTube, and a lot of that was like not high production, but you record, and then you go bring it into Vegas or whatever, and you edit.
A lot of post. Yeah.
A lot of
yeah,
post
yeah.
stuff, right? Like to bring that character to a live streaming platform, I'm like, that was scary. But the idea was to learn about the streaming industry and
Yeah.
network a little bit and.
Let's take
Yeah.
a step back
No,
too. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, but he's underselling it. I could see, he was totally sold on that. Like he knew that this industry will change or got to change. Like he's like he would come out very strongly in like how this whole kind of production value of the live streaming, which when he launched more than a year back, it's been now
Just over
almost
2
2
years.
years now,
Yeah.
right? So, but when he launched, his production level was amazing,
Sure.
like as compared to anything else, right? And that really helped him kind of, be different, and of course the character and all sorts of delivery and everything, but just the high production value of the stream and the concepts,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
And it was just great to have that. And then he was a big believer that this whole industry is gonna go, say, more towards entertainment, which it is now.
Yep.
Right. In addition to, of course, being able to play, great, and that's what is happening now. And also the future, as we are seeing, is kind of evolving into that, where a lot of the kids, a lot of the teens are now, for the first time getting introduced, thanks to Fortnite
Yep.
and, into this live streaming community, and what they are appreciating is not just the gameplay, but also in terms of the persona, in terms of the entertainment that comes along with it.
Well, and I think a lot of people, like obviously a lot of people know of Dr. DisRespect. I'd love to hear, like, how was this a career choice? I'd love to hear from your time at Activision all the way up to now. If you can kind of walk us through, what was that journey like for you? Like, because that is a bold decision. Like to your point, you're like, I want to explore and kind of learn and stream, and then obviously like, come from a world where you again heavily involved in post to just live in the moment. I'm present. Like, what was that like?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, so I had a fantastic run at Activision. I was like, it just challenged all my creative senses. I loved it, like level design, sitting there and building maps and working in that creative environment, that collaborative environment with other extremely talented people. That was just like I was living a dream.
Sure.
And then, when it was time to sort of venture outside of the Call of Duty franchise and look for sort of like a new studio to work with and potentially move my family and location, all that stuff, there was it felt like, oh, I worked on Call of Duty. I should be able to pick up a job relatively quickly,
Yeah,
just
for
based
sure.
off that experience.
Little game called Call of Duty.
Yeah, and that wasn't the case. It was, I had probably 7, 8 design tests that I went through, multiple interviews, and it was just, it became this strenuous process, very stressful process for months. And again, I mean, it came down to this one company up in Washington, but at the same time, there was just something about meeting Sumit and the timing of that. And it literally came down to a decision. I mean, I'm talking 2 weeks, where it's like, do I go here? Do we move the family up to Washington? I'm a California kid. That's gonna be a big jump, but it's sort of a known path, right? Like, I know exactly what I'm gonna do. I know what 3 years down the line what that company is gonna look like, 5 years. Or there's this Sumit who's very energetic, passionate, very successful himself. He's got this idea. It kind of falls in the same realm. I get to start up an old passion. And ultimately, I mean, it was just like, my wife, Leo, you'd make the decision. And she ultimately made the decision. She's like, just go for your passion. And that's kind of how it started.
I love how that so frequently those major life points come down to our significant others. They're like,
you make
yeah,
that's true. I mean, I was just, I asked him, hey, what's happening? I'm just waiting for my wife to make a decision.
So then you've done a lot of work on YouTube before, and then primarily then you obviously you saw what everything Twitch was doing. Talk to me about like why Twitch, why that platform. I'm really interested for several reasons, which I'll get into in a minute. But
sure. Yeah. No. I mean, going back to just like building levels. One of the things, you always have your one monitor, your 2 monitors for sort of the engine you're working in, and then here's your third monitor. On my third monitor, I always had like Summit 1G up on the live stream. I'd be watching Ninja play the old Halo games, because he was so good at it. But there's just a draw to just like have that, and I could just look up every couple moments. Oh, it's 30 to 35. Game goes to 50. It's just kind of getting close. Now my attention's up here. So the whole streaming was certainly an outlet, an entertainment type outlet, rather than just listening to music. Sometimes you get in the zone listening to music, right? But video games, for whatever, the background noise, whatever. I mean, it's free TV, right? But TV doesn't have video games,
right?
So that's how I got into Twitch. I just have it on my third screen and just watch it, and eventually I kind of like started following certain people, again, like Summit and Ninja, getting behind them, supporting them.
So I'm the founder of the Fan-Controlled Football League. I'm the chief gaming officer there. And if you guys are familiar with the premise, essentially we are building Madden in real life, right? Like literally fans choose everything about every team, right? They choose the logo, the mascot, the colors, but then they choose the plays in real time. Like, so actual people on the field choose, like, that are running plays by people at home. And one of the reasons we were obviously drawn to Twitch, we signed a 2-year, they acquired the stream rates for a couple of years for us. One of the things that we're doing, obviously, we're building out extensions and the technology available there. They'll be able to, you'll see the overlay right on top. To me, what the biggest draw was, because we started out with a proof of concept team in 2016, and in this league, we were in the indoor football league. We wanted to acquire the league. It was the indoor football league. We wanted to roll it up and rebrand it as the interactive football league, and eventually have every team do this. We quickly realized that was not going to be the case. We needed to start our own league. They had a deal with YouTube at the time, and they were live streaming to YouTube. And being a gamer, being like a very passionate gamer, I'm like, this is absolutely ridiculous. Our whole concept is around interactivity and that like lean forward experience of like, it's ostensibly you're playing a video game when you're doing this. So one of the things that like obviously we went to Twitch because of the interactivity. We had a real chat bot like at the beginning where you would call plays in chat, right? And so, which was fun to me, was like a whole bunch of people that like were watching and engaging with football kind of for the first time, right? Like, they were that kind of traditional Twitch audience, but then we're like, it was Twitch plays football, right? Like Twitch plays Pokemon. So I'm curious to see, like, Guy, like, how do you leverage the chat? How do you interact? How do you take advantage of that interactivity? Because it's obviously a very different relationship you have with your audience.
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, well, it's funny because when I first started streaming on Twitch, like, the chat was the narrative.
Yeah.
Like, because you could stream a game and you can entertain through the game, right?
Sure, yeah.
Especially as like a character. But like, you need that third dimension, and that third dimension is the chat. Like, you know, because someone says something in the chat, then now you have something you could draw a story off of, right? Like if he, you know, as the character always says, like if a guy flaps his gums in the chat, you know, negatively.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
if he's being you know, a negative person, then it's like I'm going to address that in a fun way as the character. So like in the beginning, and that's when I'm talking like where I had like 20 or 30 viewers.
Sure,
you
yeah.
know, and then at 200, 300, then it becomes more like there's a lot of energy there, and it's like, okay, cool. Now things are really rocking and rolling. Now it's really tough to engage what the chat's doing, right?
I'm sure. Yeah, it just cruises by.
Yeah, so it's like it's actually become a little bit more difficult on where do you put your sort of your energy into, because you've got donations and people that are subbing, and you certainly want to acknowledge that,
for
right?
sure.
Like that's. But at the same time, how can you still make sure that the people that are actually watching, the other, you know, thousands of people that are watching, are getting noticed or feeling wanted or empowered? And I think that's the most important part for a streamer, especially like sort of a bigger streamer, is like continuously empowering your community. And I think that's what we're trying to do at Boom. You know, we've got a replay system. So like if something cool happens on the stream, you know, all of a sudden you see this emote spammed in the chat, and if it hits a certain amount of emotes, then a replay of that cool moment will happen live on stream.
So cool.
And then, so now we're working on a new sort of instrument or tool where basically, in fact, this is just something that just kind of happened the last couple of weeks where it just popped in my head on the stream, where I was like, hey, chat, what do you think about this idea? Because I was in a situation with a sniper in the game, and I said, should I go and attack this guy, or should I wait here and wait for the gas? And I was thinking to myself, I wish I had a button where I could press it right then and there, and it basically would pop up on the screen, yes or no,
Right,
or
yeah.
option 1 or option 2,
For sure.
or option 1, A, B, or C,
Yeah.
and then vote in the chat. And so that's kind of what we're working on right now. Just those
And
type-
then, yeah, I mean, anything around chat, if anybody has any ideas who's watching, who's on, you know, in this audience, do reach out to us, because I think, as you said, smaller streamers do have, you know, essentially a better grip on the chat. But I've heard this from a lot of big streamers is they would love to, you know, they would love to have essentially a better handle on what's going on in the chat and be able to respond to that. It's just that it is impossible for any human being to do that, you know, between the donations, the subs,
and playing the game.
and playing the
Yeah,
game,
right,
and also the narrative,
by the
because it is essentially a story, right? You are also
Yeah.
building a narrative while you are playing.
For sure.
I mean, I don't even know how people do that, like, you know,
And-
and then being able to even do all this stuff. So definitely, you know, and I'm sure there are a lot of AI technologies that can be built, you know, yeah, you know, but still, you know, it needs that kind of a human touch, not like, hey, you know, that's the summary of these reactions. That's not going to be human.
Totally. Well, I got one more question. I want to,
Yeah.
guys, we have a few more minutes left, so Maurice is going to walk around with a microphone, so start throwing up your hands. He'll start picking up if you guys have some questions. Give me 1 second. I'm curious, like, what's interesting to me is the chat has a life of its own, right? Like, there's so many, like, there's this whole, like, meta commentary and, like, weird memes pop up that, like, is totally organic, completely independent of anything we can control. During our first season, we had a sideline reporter, like, a great guy, but he was kind of like he's a bit of a goof. Like, you know, he's an older gentleman. He like did local sports in Salt Lake. Rick, I love you if you're watching. But he's like the bastard child of like Mr. Rogers and like Craig Sager from TNT. You know, the guy that wears the cool
Yep.
suits. And the chat at the beginning was merciless, right? Like as you know they can be. But then we actually turned that into like a hashtag like Rick Asks, and they drove all of his sideline reporting. So like he would stop asking and be like, oh, how was that touchdown for you? And he would say things like, is it Biggie or Tupac, right? It was totally driven by the chat. I'm curious to see like, what's the craziest thing that either kind of evolved organically from your chat, or what was the actual like best smackdown you did to somebody?
Oh,
All time.
I couldn't remember that.
There's so many.
I think a lot of things develop from the chat. Like if I'm in a moment and I'll say, you know, like for one example is there's like the violence, speed, momentum sort of quote that the doctor says a lot. I mean, he said that after he killed like 3 guys in H1Z1, he's feeling good and felt powerful, and he screamed at violence, speed, momentum. And I noticed that the chat was
Going crazy.
Love
going
it.
crazy, and they kept on repeating and repeating, and so now it's sort of a staple of the channel.
It's a mantra.
And a lot of those things are, you know, they certainly pop up from the chat. Like that, I forget about. Like, you know, when I first screamed Raul or Portugal or a lot of these weird things, you know, like the chat loves. It seems like they like those type of things.
Yeah,
so.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I think we've got a question right over here, right?
Does this work? All right, cool. Hey, I'm Jason. I'm a founder of a company called Beahm, streaming app. We're big fan viewers. I'm curious, Guy, you've got a lot of perspective coming from YouTube, watching Twitch grow. You have one of the biggest channels on Twitch that rivals like a lot of cable channels. Ninja has like a bigger audience than like the Overwatch League, and he's getting $90 million or the Overwatch League is getting $90 million deals. Where do you see your streaming career and other large streaming careers like in 3 years?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think I think the answer certainly varies amongst each individual streamer and their sort of their goals, both short term and long term. I think given sort of the nature of my channel and sort of the odd nature that it's driven by a character, you know, like sort of the big picture that I'm looking at is potentially like a TV show, just because of the fictional story that's surrounding the character, you know, like being the most dominating video game player in the entire world. Like I think that right there is a storyline.
It's a superpower.
Yeah, is a superpower. So, I mean, 2 or 3 years, you know, you'd like to work up to that step, whether that's, you know, trying to take the channel to the next level on Twitch currently, or I mean, you know, hearing about how Netflix might, you know, there's those type of adventures. Like I certainly would want to take it to the TV show series. If there's movie opportunities with the character, I'm open to that. But one thing that I am lacking on a personal level is like a creative challenge right now. Just streaming on Twitch daily, 5 days a week, and kind of doing the same thing, playing the same content. It's not necessarily wearing me down. It just doesn't feel creatively challenging enough. And I don't know what that next level is or what that outlet could be, but I'm looking for it. So, yeah. Hope that answers your question. Cool.
I'm having a hard time saying. Maurice, do we have any other more questions? Looks like right here.
Lights are bright.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no. It's like,
I like
Hey, how's it going? My name is Wenz. I was just wondering if you've ever experimented with answering a live stream of questions that are curated during downtime in between games, almost like a live and personal AMA with a chosen set of Twitch users.
I haven't thought of that. One of the things I have a challenge with is a structured like schedule of streaming events throughout a stream. Like I'm terrible at it. Like Boom, I'm supposed to run Boom tournaments on Thursdays and Fridays at like 4 o'clock, right? And it's like 4:30, 4:45. I'm in the middle of the game. I'm getting texts like, hey, are you gonna start that tournament? So for me that's certainly I like that idea. You know, I feel like I try to tackle again in an organic way. Like I'll look at the chat. If something catches my eye in chat during any sort of downtime between a game, or if I've died early and my teammate's still alive and I'm spectating him, I'll look at the chat. And if I see something that is worth bringing up on stream and making a kind of like a narrative or story out of it, that's what I usually do. But that is interesting.
Yeah, but that's an
Yeah, great
interesting
question.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea, definitely.
any more out there? Keep thinking. So I don't think it would be like a gaming event if I didn't ask you guys about E3. Like what was, I'm curious, Guy and then Sumit, like what was the coolest thing you saw coming out of E3 this year? I know you weren't there, but like you saw the press conferences, I would imagine. Anything like got you excited?
I think just because of the genre and the talent of the studio, like I am pretty excited about Cyberpunk 2077.
Absolutely.
And they've reached out a few times in you know, I can't guarantee anything, but they seem like they'd be open to an idea of like maybe bringing the character into a DLC. I don't know. We still have to talk to them, but like,
Fantastic news.
I told them that I'd be open to working with them
Yeah.
on like designing a concept level or some sort of like side mission. I don't even know what the game is about yet,
Sure.
like, really, but
incredibly talented group over there.
Totally.
Having spent that entire time on the floor, there was an unparalleled. Do you remember several years ago the Star Wars 1313? Like
Yes.
when people would watch that, they'd watch the behind closed doors demo and then walk around the rest of the show, and it was like, no, you need to hurt somebody to get in and see this. You
Yeah.
have to. And that was the whole vibe around Cyberpunk. Like I wasn't lucky enough to get over there, but like literally everybody I talked to were like. It blew
Awesome.
their minds. It was. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it
Cool.
at the E3. How about somebody?
Yeah, but I was kind of disappointed. I mean, of course, there was there was a lot of good game announcements, but I was kind of disappointed that there wasn't any. I was expecting any of these AAA studios to come out with something where there's more of the interaction with the viewers. Like, they all know now what's happening,
Yep.
Yeah,
right,
sure.
in the influencer community and how, I mean, it has to be great content, of course, right?
Yeah.
But how it's all going together, right? And the industry is moving towards that. And in spite of that fact, I think AAA industry is kind of slow to react to it as compared to say other modems of the industry. I guess
Yeah.
I would say, and it might be just because of the pressures of the industry, like got to deliver, in terms of the timing and all the stuff. They have been building these games for like around 5-6 years.
Yeah.
So might be that it will come in the future, but I was hoping that there would be some big announcements around how this game kind of uses the whole live streaming medium to go along with that.
No, I could see.
And
that.
I was like, nothing.
Yeah.
Wow, that was very surprising to me.
No, you're right. I think I think that's an excellent point. I will say that I feel like all of the studios are getting much better at listening to community feedback. I know it's a different thing, but I feel like that's the toe in the water, right? That they're they're integrating kind of that community feedback.
Yeah.
Did you guys get a chance to see Anthem, by the way? Did you see the video?
I saw some of the gameplay. Yeah.
Unbelievable. It was very cool.
Yeah. It visually looks really cool. I'd be curious to see how deep the actual gameplay goes.
Dude, I will tell you, it felt amazing. I got a chance to have hands on that game. Yeah, the click to hover and then the aerial, like all of it felt amazing. Coolest Iron Man simulator ever. To your point, I have no idea how that feels like a BioWare game, right? Like I don't know what the narrative hooks are going to be like. It was a very kind of linear path that they had us on. It was like a 15-minute demo. So.
And I think we got a little bit of tease of like, okay, AAA is starting to get into VR games a little bit more, right? Like Call of Duty, like their Blackout version, but we haven't seen gameplay on it.
Nope.
Battlefield teased like that they're doing it, but we haven't seen any gameplay on it.
6 minutes in, for those people who are counting, like 6 minutes into all of E3, we got our first Battle Royale announcement.
Yeah.
There were fewer than I thought, actually.
I
I was ready with a snark on Twitter. I was ready to go with the Battle Royale jokes, but that was kind of disappointing. Looks like we've got a question.
Yeah, he's pointing to somebody.
Oh, all right. Looks like our time's
Yeah,
about up.
Awesome.
So, one more question?
Awesome. I appreciate letting me get in the last question. My name is Matt Martinez. I'm from wavearm.gg. We're a marketing agency, esports agency in Chicago. So, Guy, I had a question for you. You had mentioned just in terms of elevating your creativity and kind of trying different platforms from Twitch, and you'd mentioned Netflix. So, I was just curious, what kind of partnerships are you most excited about in terms of the future of gaming content like you're creating?
Partnerships as in like.
What things do you want to do? Beyond Twitch. You'd mentioned Netflix, some other things, and in terms of just partnerships that you think would be great for your brand.
Sure. It's God. This industry is so tricky. It's constantly just evolving and changing. I mean, right now, if you look at Twitch platform and with the sort of the rise of Fortnite, that's introduced a completely new demographic. Not completely new demographic, but certainly an influx of a specific demographic to the platform, being sort of a younger audience. And, it feels like the character there, like he, not necessarily is worn out his welcome or anything like that, but his demographic, I'm not sure particularly caters to that demographic, this influx. So as Twitch is growing in that sort of capacity, like in that sort of way, is it the right fit for the character? And so like, I'm excited to hear how Mixer's going to do, how their platform is going to evolve over the next year or two. They're putting a lot of resources in Facebook.gg's just got into it. I'd be curious to see how that platform evolves. you know, Hulu, Netflix, you know, you just got a feeling that
Yeah,
they're going to look at these numbers and just go, okay, we need to get into the live streaming
100%.
you know, business as well. So,
Guys, thank you so much for your questions. I think our time is about up. Really quickly before we go, Guy, like, where can people find you on social? Where can they, if they want to harass you, see your content online?
sure, twitch.tv/Dr. Disrespect Live. That's where I'm at 5 days a week. I usually post my schedule on Twitter, which is at Dr. Disrespect.
Great. Sumit, where can people find you?
At Boom TV.
At Boom TV.
Yeah.
I'm at P to the D's on Twitter, and you can follow the Fan Control Football League at FCFL. That's Fan Control Football League IO. Guys, thank you so much, and we'll see you around the convention.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Pat.